Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre, Samaan, and it's great being back with you. We've been on the series of the ABCs of spiritual life. Today we're on the letter L. And I sat down and I thought, okay, what do people need to hear? What am I hearing? What's the feedback coming back from others that may have something to do with the letter L? And as I was dwelling on it and praying about it, and actually it took a few days to think, letter L, and there's love and there's all those other words that are important, but one word kind of started to sneak up, it kind of raised up above the rest, and that was loneliness. And I thought, oh yes, loneliness. With all this COVID stuff and everything going on for over a year, there's a lot of lonely people, a lot of depressed people out there. So I don't know if the treatment for the alleged pandemic is good or bad, because there are more complaints, more problems regarding other things like depression or medical conditions that haven't gotten treated, people in dire situations just because they couldn't get their normal routine help that they would get from normal everyday situations that they couldn't get in the last year and a half. Well, loneliness. I don't like it. I don't think you like it, but sometimes I enjoy being alone. But too much aloneness can tip the scale into loneliness. That's not a good thing. God has lessons, however, for all of our situations, and so his lessons for us to learn in every state of mind that we may find ourselves, including the affliction of loneliness, is just an arm reach away. You pull out that Bible and you start studying, you start reading, you start learning, and you begin to identify lessons. In everything there's a lesson. Things don't just randomly happen, and I'm not a person that believes in coincidences. So anything that we may have said is a coincidence. No, I don't agree with that. I believe everything has order, because God is a God of order and he created us in that way. Therefore, there's a reason for everything, and there's a lesson to learn in everything. And so what do we learn from loneliness? How can we grow from a state of affliction? Is being alone necessarily a bad thing? Not really, but too much of anything is never good. Even the loner who enjoys their solitude will reach a threshold of isolation. That is, there's the threshold, and the more alone they become, suddenly they hit the threshold and oops, now it's too much aloneness, and problems may result from that for many people. Eventually everyone needs someone or something to block anxiety or the discomforting feelings of aloneness. You have melancholy temperaments who, they like their aloneness. They're loners, and they like their time alone, especially if it's at the end of the day and they want to think about the day. They want to go back and put all the pieces of the day together in their minds. They need that alone time to be able to do that. Oftentimes with couples, I have to teach them that it's okay if one wants to be alone at the end of the day for a little while, reasonable time. Might be a half hour, might be an hour. But compulsive loners, they're going to need to be alone maybe a little longer than that, depending on the circumstances and what's going on. There are those who don't like being alone. Sanguine temperaments, for example, they're extroverts of high intensity. They don't like being alone at all. Well, loneliness is dire for them. They don't want that, so they reach out. They work at it, and you find that they have fewer problems with loneliness than the melancholy may have. Because what happens is that melancholy temperament enjoys the aloneness, but too much is never good, because too much brings pain. And loneliness is when you're feeling sad about being alone, even when you're not alone. Have you ever been in a crowd of people, or even at a party, feeling alone, feeling lonely, because you're not connecting in some way with the others around you? Even in a full room of people, the distressing feeling of isolation can be overwhelming for some people, especially if they're already dealing with certain issues, such as depression, or already a sense of being alone, not being attached in some way. In 2009, there was a study done about the spread of loneliness, and they found that that spread of loneliness was increasing. And then, remember, this was back in 2009. We're here in the COVID time period. I can only imagine that whatever they found in 2009 has doubled at least in present day, because of the isolation that has occurred due to the spread of the COVID situation and the government's requirements of whatever, for whatever governments or communities, that has pulled people away from one another, withdrawn and isolated people, to where loneliness has grown. People are sitting in their rooms for hours and hours rather than going out and taking a walk, or speaking to the neighbor, or dealing with everyday things, going to the grocery store and so on. That perception of loneliness back in 2009 was more intense than the perception of social connections. And what they concluded from that study was that loneliness is becoming a potent social factor needing aggressive attention, not just casual attention. During her lifetime, Albanian Roman Catholic missionary Mother Teresa was a historical figure among India's mission workers. And I remember reading a lot about her, hearing of her many wonderful deeds that she did, and other things. And few people are aware of the fact that Mother Teresa had an issue of major depression, major depressive disorder. It was a condition that she suffered from for quite some time. And at times she would be unable to get out of bed for days. I don't know about you, but once in a while I'll get sad or blue, and in the morning I just don't want to get up. I just want to just kind of lay there and chill out, But can you imagine the weight of that depression on someone so active as Mother Teresa was? She said this about loneliness: "The greatest disease in the West today is not tuberculosis or leprosy. It's being unwanted, unloved, uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. There are many in the world who are dying for a piece of bread, but there are many more dying for a little love," she says. The poverty in the West is a different kind of poverty. It's not only a poverty of loneliness, but also of spirituality. There's a hunger for love, Mother Teresa says, as there's a hunger for God. Loneliness is the leprosy of the modern world, according to Mother Teresa. She hit it spot on as far as I'm concerned. Addressing loneliness was as important back then as it needs to be today. The mindset of loneliness is an affliction found in all people. It's not just you or me or someone else or the poor or the rich or whatever. It's the whole spectrum. Wealthy, not so wealthy, executives, servants, co-workers, you name it. Everybody is impacted by loneliness in one way or another. Even the apple of God's eye, King David, experienced loneliness. He said, "Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I'm lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distresses." He was speaking to God, pleading to God. He felt very alone at times because of the various situations. Can you imagine that? Having all those servants and everyone addressing you and asking you, what do you need, what do you want, and all this, and yet you feel very much alone. Loneliness is a state of affliction. Affliction is where you feel pain and suffering. So when you're in that state of loneliness, not just a little loneliness, but it's been a few days, you feel lonely, you feel the pain. I've had melancholy compulsive individuals cry because of the pain of loneliness that they might feel because they tipped over, it went too far, and now they need help to reconnect because they can't stand that pain. And unfortunately, many of them don't go and get the help they need, which only makes it worse, and bad things come out of it generally if they don't get that help. Well, there are tools to helps to prevent and overcome loneliness. There's so much more we can talk about regarding loneliness, but we need to make sure we get this addressed, and that's, well, what do I do about it if I'm lonely? The good news is that you can overcome chronic loneliness by making changes in your thoughts and your behavior. I point to the heart because what we do comes out of our heart. Remember I said in previous episodes, think of your mind as two parts. Upper room, that's the main area. Lower room, which is your basement. The basement is where depression is. The basement is where loneliness resides. And if we don't go up those steps out of the basement into the upper room of our mind, where our good thinking is located and where our connection with God is located, then we're going to have greater troubles in trying to get out of that affliction of loneliness, which becomes heavier and heavier, as Mother Teresa experienced with her depression. So heavy. How does someone get out of that basement? Well, chronic loneliness, you have to make changes. And in making the changes, how do I help myself get up those steps back into the upper room where there's good thinking located? Here are some helpful suggestions to prevent and overcome loneliness in your life. First of all, the most obvious, God. God is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. He's always there. Jesus lays down his life for his friends. Do you have a friend who will lay down their life for you? Do you have a family member who would do that? As believers, we have Jesus who's already done that for us. Well, when I feel lonely, I can think of that and I can recognize, wow, he loved me so much that he was willing to give his life and to make a plan in bringing me with him to heaven when my time comes. I'm not so alone after all, am I? He's always there. Jesus promises never to leave us or forsake us. God's people in Jesus Christ, the Messiah, will never be deserted under any circumstances, according to what the Bible tells us. And I believe the Bible because everything it's said up to our day and time and promises given have all come true. Not one of them has not. That's evidence. That evidence that demands action of belief. Seek medical treatment or counseling for depression if you feel that loneliness has been hanging on for too long and it's causing problems with work or relating with family or friends. Volunteer to do good, especially to those who are of the faith household. Volunteering is one of the best tools that someone can do to feel better, because when you're helping someone else, it brightens you. It makes you feel better. And it also helps you to feel, gosh, I don't have it so bad after all. They've got it worse. And in the same way for them, they may have it worse than you, but there's always someone who has it worse than someone else. We're not in such a bad situation after all. Remind yourself of that. Be optimistic, always expecting the best. I do my best to stay in my upper room of thinking where the good thinking is. So to do that, I have to think good thoughts. I'm optimistic whenever I possibly can be. Not all the time, especially when the bills are due, but I'm optimistic as much as I can, so I think the best. Well, God's going to send that check, or God's going to help with this, or God's going to take care of that, or God's going to get me on time because I'm running late. It works that way. In staying out of the basement, staying up here in the upper room, be in the moment, the mindfulness of the moment. And that basically means wherever you are, don't let your thoughts run amok and send you downstairs into the basement of depression or negative thinking, critical thinking. I want to be up here in the moment. How do I do that? Well, I make the best of whatever moment I'm in. If I'm in a conference and I don't know anybody and I'm all alone, how do I make the best of that? How do I address that? Well, I'm here. There's a lot of people around me. I see people smiling. I see people serious. I hear the speaker. I'm learning. I'm growing. That's mindfulness. I'm anchoring myself in that moment. Well, when I do that, it's very hard to worry about loneliness or think, oh, I'm all alone. I have no one to talk to. No one cares. No, I'm mindful of my situation at the moment. You can do that anywhere. Pray. Sing praises. You don't have to do it out loud, but sing praises and giving thanks for everything, and God will renew your mind. Pray, sing, thank the Lord, listen to Christian music, listen to praise music. That's uplifting music. Uplift, yeah. And read scripture if you can. You don't have to read the whole Bible, but read a few passages, read a few sentences. Most of the time I start to read a sentence, and before you know it, it's a chapter or two that I've gone through, and then I got to go back and I got to figure this out. What's the lesson in that for me? Wow. Tips me back over to not being lonely, but feeling okay, feeling like I have someone who's close to me, God, the Holy Spirit, and others who care about me. I'm not self-centered at that moment. I'm reaching out, drawing from those things around me that are good. Identify God's lesson in your pain and suffering. That's your loneliness. There's a lesson to be learned in everything. It's like layers. There's a layer of a lesson. There's another layer of a lesson. Those multiple layers are there for our good. They're there to build us up and to help us to grow. When we look for the lesson in whatever's going on, we learn something new. And when we learn something new, we're pulling ourselves out of the basement up into the upper room of good thinking. Wow, I just learned something new. I love to learn new things. I love to hear speakers or read something that's new. I always feel like if I learn something new, I'm gaining, I'm maturing more, I'm growing, and I'm able to pass that along to others instead of just repeating myself over and over again. Wow, that's exciting for me. May not be exciting for you, but something else may be exciting for you in helping you to stay out of the basement of loneliness. And develop quality relationships. I can't tell you the importance of having quality relationships to stay out of loneliness. Those fair weather friends, they're there today and they're gone tomorrow. The minute they can't use you anymore, off they go to find someone else they can use. The minute you're not making them feel good because that's the only reason they want to be around you, then off they go to find someone else to make them feel good. And what happens to you? Wow. Now you feel lonely because those fair weather friends have gone. Yeah, you don't want fair weather friends. They're thinking more of themselves than they are of you or really of anybody else. It's all about them. So find quality friends. Don't hang on to those fair weather friends. Be friends with everyone, but when you identify someone as a fair weather friend, they should be at a different level of trust and a different level of relationship, not that close bond that you're looking for in a best friend. Yet I'm not alone, for my Father is with me, the Bible says. There are the words of Jesus when experiencing aloneness in feeling the painful anticipation or anticipated desertion of his followers. I can't imagine how he felt going through the time of suffering, the crucifixion, and the thoughts of, well, where are they? I asked them to pray. I asked them to stay awake. They couldn't even do that for me. Sadness, loss, loneliness. Jesus had God, and Jesus spoke to God, and Jesus' prayers were evident through that entire time. Yet when we think about our friends or our fair weather friends, knowing at any moment they could be gone, then who's my backup? I need backup. I need quality friends. God's words of reassurance is important to keep in our upper room because it helps draw us back up when we're feeling down. In our loneliness, God's presence will lift us into spiritual and personal growth. That's where I want to be, lifted into spiritual and personal growth. I hope this was helpful for you regarding loneliness. There's so much more to talk about, but we had such a short amount of time to be able to discuss this. Look up material on loneliness if you're having trouble with it, and please seek help. Don't try to do all this on your own. Maybe it's a best friend that you can speak with, or maybe it's a close, trusted family member, or maybe it's your pastor or a youth pastor, or perhaps a counselor, preferably a Christian counselor, and maybe even your doctor. Doctors do a lot of counseling too. I get my hair cut, and the person that cuts my hair, she does a lot of counseling also. There are people out there that can help you But if you hold it in and you don't talk about it, then it just grows on the inside. It's like a cancer growing. Got to let it out. I want to remind you that here at New Horizons Institute of Counseling, we're for healing, peace, and harmony. If you got something out of this today, please press the like button and press the bell if you'd like to be notified for future videos. We do have a PDF of each video, and if you would like a PDF of this video, just notify us or sign up at our webpage for the newsletter, and you'll be automatically receiving a PDF of the videos. God bless. We'll talk to you next time.